Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We have a new set here, Nature Set number 23. It features the covered bridges. And let's get into a real simple application of this set here. We'll go with a large covered bridge. And I'm just going to be stamping this out in pigment inks. You can use like a VersaFine Clair or something like that. I'm using the Brilliance Graphite Black. It just dries a little bit faster than the Clairs. Clairs probably give you a better impression though. The paper that I'm using is just a dark, uncoated paper, okay? So it's very porous and will absorb the paper, or the inks just fine as far as the oil, so it'll dry quickly. And this is a pre-folded 5x7. So this is 5x7, opened up 10x7, okay? And I like using both sides of the piece, you know, so when we kind of open it up, it gives us a double page spread. I'm going to go with the vertical format. On this one, we'll try that out here. Okay. I'm just going about midway up the the half panel. A lot of people tell me that they don't stamp on the back of the card. Well, in scenic stamping, I mean, you wouldn't do that with most types of cards. I don't know. I wouldn't say that. Maybe not most, but a lot of different types, you know, where there's, you know, kind of just a central focus. But, you know, scenic stamping is really conducive to kind of expansive types of compositions. So why not? You know, take advantage of it. It makes for a dramatic kind of process in terms of the opening up of space. You know, when you take something like that and you open it up, or you know, when this will be folded in half. I just want to make this some kind of dramatic sky up there. So, in a way, it gives us three compositions, but kind of their sum total is more I don't know what the word is. It's just more impressive a piece when you can do that sequential types of reveals. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Yeah, well, what I mean by that is when you're opening up a card, you know, you're moving forward. There's a process to it. Okay, this is the sedge filler. This is a small version. Right here. All right, now I'm just kind of filling in this space. So this is the way that I usually recommend people work when they're doing scenic stamping. A lot of people, when they see a finished piece, if they haven't done scenic stamping before, the biggest question is, where do you start? You know, do you start off with the sky? Do you start off with the background and then work foreground? You know, there's a lot of questions in regards to that type of process. But what I usually do is I usually use the largest pieces, and I work the smaller pieces around it. That's not always the case, but just in general, it's a pretty good way to think about it. Here's some little textures that we can use here. Okay, these are some rocks. I use it both in my roadway here as well as in my grass. I think it just kind of expands on the whole kind of textural palette that you'll be using in your piece, potentially, to give it a much richer type of surface than with, you know, not having something like that. Some little textures that I can use in my grasses here. I like to give things a little bit of a different height when I stamp these out, so I will mask off and I'll get smaller portions of the image used, okay? All right, so here's a lot of the main image, and then we have our, what I call, filler image around it, okay? Now, this is just a really quick way to work because we're not working with so many different colors and whatnot. All right, now here's a new image that I have here. It's an existing image, but it's kind of a take on another image. This is the maple pear, but it's just the tops of it. I try to fit as much as I can into these sets. Sometimes I can't fit the whole image, but a lot of times I'm just using, the top portions of certain trees. So this one right here, you won't have to do any kind of masking. It's just kind of this tree, almost kind of texture. You can kind of build it up in the background like that. You can build a stack of additional trees. I don't know what type of tree they are. If I color them in fall tones, maybe they're maples. If I do it in pinks, maybe they're cherry trees or something of that sort. It just depends. You can always do it in kind of a spring, fall type of thing. You can just do them green. Then they can be pretty much whatever. Okay, so that has been stamped out. You can see little spaces in there because that's kind of the wet ink. And as that dries, it'll kind of more mellow out a little bit more. The angle that you hold kind of certain types of papers in will kind of change the values of the inks that are used on here. Now this one's going to be a nighttime scene, naturally. It's not going to be high noon on this kind of dark paper here, so we'll do something accordingly or within that kind of temperature spectrum. It's cool. So night or winter. Okay, so there are certain things you can do on this scene at this point in time. I could do the background first in here, or I can stamp my foreground imagery. We have these hanging tree limbs here that'll kind of hang in, as if we're standing kind of at the base of a tree looking into the scene. I think I might hold, and I'll stamp my foreground later, potentially last. Okay, alright, so let's just hold off on that. Let's get to some toning, okay? Now this is the easiest type of toning you'll ever do because pigment inks really spread around really nicely. Okay, they're thick. So when you lay them down, it's not like, some sort of like watercolor inking process painting, where you get these spontaneous marks and then that is it, okay? This is much different than that. I don't know, it's almost like putting shoe polish on, on your shoe and kind of spreading it around or whatnot. Now, there might be different viscosities of certain brands of inks, but I find for the most part they work, pretty similar. The Brilliance works a little bit different in that it dries faster, but even with this being a fast-drying pigment ink, you can really kind of spread it around very nicely. It's very malleable, okay? So what do we do here, okay? This is what I like to do. I like to oscillate my lights and darks, okay? See, I'm starting in the outside edge in, and I'm just kind of, I'm not trying to, get that amount of black with one pass, okay? I'm trying to just build it up with lighter applications of it, or whatnot, okay? I don't know what a good analogy would be. My horrible analogies I'm always doing on these videos, but I don't know. I don't know, what would this be like? I don't know. Comment down below. It's going for kind of lighter applications. Now, here's one of the things that I do that people do not do when they're first trying this process, and they think it's hard, okay? They can't get these transitions right here. But one of the things that I'm doing is I'm staying in one area, okay? And what's that's doing is it's creating kind of this elongated transitioning value range. And it's also smoothing something out. A lot of times people will see a lot of different tones on something, and their automatic kind of inclination is to tone like this. okay? Not from the outside in, or they go, if they hear outside in, they want to go like this. And they don't see anything, so they go really hard like that and get something like that type of streak, okay? But it's not that. Here, you're just going like this. I mean, you can turn off your brain practically. Maybe that's better, I don't know. Or use the stamping on the right side of the brain or whatever. See that right there? See, I mean, I need to re-ink, but see this right here? It's kind of harsh, so I'm pulling it out. Just pulling that line out, okay? Streaky is fine, too. If it's a little bit too harsh, then you just keep blending it in. You just stay in that one area. And just kind of make the background a little bit darker so that that harsher streak becomes less apparent because you're closing in the contrast between the background and that mark. And I don't see that as a mistake or anything like that. I'm just saying, for example, if you want it real smooth. A lot of people don't want kind of this streakier type of look, you know. I tend to think this is very smooth, okay? But it's also oscillating, okay? A lot of people, I don't know, for some reason the aesthetic kind of, like I've mentioned in past videos, sometimes the aesthetic value is based on the absence of any type of texture. Well, in art, texture is a huge, huge element. I don't know why people would kind of get away from that. And it's also to kind of, it's to express the surface, you know. So if you have texture on your surface right here, you know, paper, people love the tactile feel of paper. It's like the difference between holding like a piece of glass or paper. I think people really love the tactile nature of paper, especially like handmade papers and whatnot. They're very tactile and textural, you know, they're sensual, you know, kind of the absence of any type of texture, be it tactile or visual. I don't know, there's just something missing there, so have it streaky, you know, have it kind of, you know, have, you know, kind of an element of your hand in it. You know, brush strokes for a painter are really important, you know, in calligraphy or oil painting or whatnot. All right, so see that sky up there? But see how irregular it is, too. There's kind of harsher streaks. There's much softer kind of applications up there, but it gives me a pretty good look in terms of variety. Okay, now let's go down here and kind of bring in some additional tones in here. Okay, let's look at this right now. Now here's the question. Okay, now I understand this part completely, but where would you add some shading on something like this? Okay. I'll tell you where I look. Okay, now on my design itself, you can see where the rooftop is a little bit lighter than the side of this covered bridge. Well, I might want a little bit more tone on the side of the covered bridge. What I'm doing is I'm reiterating the shading of the design itself, okay? So see that where I made this edge, the side of this covered bridge is a little bit darker, so the rooftop seems lighter, so we're being top lit, which is usually the case, unless you have a light down here kind of shining up on there or something of that sort. Okay, now let's look at this road coming around, okay? I might want to kind of showcase that road a little bit more, so I can come in here and bring a little bit of shading like this. Do you see where my road is kind of slowly starting to stand out a little bit more, just because I've made the area around it a little bit darker, okay? Now this is just working with black. We're going to work with light as well, okay? At the base of my trees, I might put some trees. You go and stand underneath a tree or whatnot for shade, right? I mean, you wouldn't be doing that in the moonlight, but I'm just saying, just underneath my trees, underneath trees in general, it's usually a little bit lighter, okay? We have some trees over here. Darken up some of those over here. Now if I want this bridge to stand out a little bit more, I can put a little tone on those trees behind the bridge. Don't do it with a, super, soaking applicator. By the way, this is just 100% cotton ball. Okay, one of the things I like to do is I like to give my bottom left and right corners, actually top left and right corners too, but I like to kind of frame my scene off a little bit with darkened four corners, okay? All right. Don't we have that? All right. Dare I illuminate this scene a lot? I'm thinking about putting a moon up there. Now, I have some other moons that I could use. Let's go ahead and do that. I have a new moon set too. So let's introduce a moon up here. If you don't have a moon, one of the things you can do is you can just use a hole punch and just add, put the round circle up there and mask off a little bit of a moon. I think I'll use, let's go with Eerie Moon. Let's go about like right here, maybe. Yeah, Eerie Moon. Hey, it could be any of them, though. Whatever you want to do. Or, you can look at my videos. You can see, I just use that hole punch a lot of times. By the way, these stamps are available individually, too. I'm just mentioning the sets, so you just got them in. Okay, and we'll just do this one in black. You're saying, well, I want a white moon. Okay, well, I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Okay, all right. I'll put the moon right about here, kind of rule of thirds type of thing. One of the things with these pieces, this is going to be kind of the main card, the back of the card, and then you open it up and it makes, for a full, kind of double page spread. Okay? But I do want, kind of the front to read as a scene, and this scene, part to read as a scene in itself, okay? I like them to be both kind of integrated, but also reading separate, because this is going to be a folded card, so I want that to be a scene, and that to be a scene. But, again, they work together. Okay, so, let's see, that's drying a little bit there, but I think I'll just go in and add some extra tinting to it. One cotton ball kind of lasts you for like one scene, maybe two. Well, it depends how much you use it, of course. But there's these kind of striations on the cloud, and I'm just going in and merging that, those textures with the surrounding area now that I have that image in there. I wasn't planning on using this moon. I just, just thought about it on the spur of the moment. I was just going to do some stars or something of that sort, which I might still do, even with a full moon. You get full moon and stars, you can do both. All right. Okay, there's the moon up there. It's very, nondescript right now, because it's, it's a very dark background, so you have dark against dark. But let's bring it out now. This is where we're going to bring out a lot of light, and this is where a lot of things happen. You can do these things in like a chalk pencil or a colored pencil too on this type of paper. I like using my white paint pen. I'm kind of deciding on if I want to do that. I've been using a lot of these chalk pencils and colored pencils as well, and those are really fun to do. let's try that. I think that a lot of people can relate to pencil coloring sometimes easier than pigmenting application. I'm going to do both because I love to do both, but I'll show you what I do here. Okay, so this is a white paint pen. I didn't shake it up at all. And let's really illuminate that. It's going to give us a very strong white. Kind of thinking, I'm deciding if I wanted that white. It's so kind of subdued in here, but oh, let's just do it. Okay, so I have these kind of striations going through the moon on the design, so it's a little bit divided here. I can just do the full circle, I don't know. Alright. Now, here's the thing. Any of my reflections, my highlights and illumination in this scene, cannot be any lighter than my light source, right? Your light source is going to be the brightest thing in the sky, or the lightest thing in the sky. So, making that fairly light like that opens up the possibilities as far as, you know, the types of additions that you can put in here. Okay, now, I mentioned colored pencil. I'll use some of that. I don't know, maybe I'm just going to use everything. Why not? You guys, for those who have been watching this video channel for a while, you'll have a lot of tricks up your sleeve to utilize in your pieces. One of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some kind of interesting tears here in my paper towel. Maybe I should use a new paper towel. I'll still utilize this one, but okay. I want to go for. Let's see. There's kind of a different grain. See, if you tear a paper towel one way, yeah, it kind of rips straight. But then if you go kind of the other way, you get kind of a little bit more of an irregular tear. Okay, I don't know, you can practice your tail. I'm kind of fine tuning right here. I have a lot of kind of jagged areas here. So, okay. White pigment ink. Okay. And your Brilliance ink. Or just white pigment ink, okay? Any brand. And what I'm going to do, okay, now see this looping side of my clouds, that's going to be the clouds underneath the moon, okay? So, just what part of it do you want, okay? See my moon right there. I'll just come up into some of these areas like this. And I'm not trying to match it up perfectly with anything that exists on the design. But here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start applying some of this ink. I need to see if I have enough ink on this pad. Okay. And very lightly start dabbing it down. See, there's my little cloud right there. See? Don't try to get it in one application. You're just going to kind of apply it down. I do a little pulling too sometimes to kind of spread that little ink application around. And I'm mostly on the paper towel too. Okay. Now if I start moving down and I start opening it up into a larger section, then I'll, come off of the paper towel. Okay. You kind of have to figure out where the ink is on your applicators. Sometimes it's you go like this, and it's inked up in a different area a little bit more. And be careful too when you start using your pigment inks, because if you don't use your pigment ink a lot of times it's very, very juicy and wet, even if you haven't used it in 5 years. Okay, so see that there's my cloud right there catching some of that moonlight. Okay. Now, but we layer it. It's not just one cloud there. Okay, so I'll go like this now. We'll come up with some additional clouds here. Okay. I'll show you a trick on, or the difference between top lit clouds and bottom lit clouds. Okay. It's going to be the same technique though. But see, these clouds are underneath my moon, right? So, they're being top lit, all right? Now, the clouds over my moon, okay, so this is the way I'm working right here, okay? So, if the clouds are over the moon, you don't go like this and top lit your clouds. All you do is you take your mask, there that is right there, see that? And you turn it around this way, okay? And now, these clouds above the moon are being bottom lit, because the moonlight is underneath. Okay. I'm getting kind of an uneven application. I think my ink on my pad is a little bit uneven right now. That's all right though. Like I said, it doesn't matter. You know, you can have texture up there. Now see, I'm kind of just spreading it around a little bit more. If you're getting kind of lumpy little bits like I am, all right, then you just kind of spread it around just like you did your black, okay? Now see that top lit cloud right there? All right, now let's layer all this together a little bit more, okay? Okay, so let's go down here. You can change this around. See, I did this. This is, I don't know where it is. There it is right there. The mask is right here. So when I come down, I don't just, you know, I'll move this around a little bit so it'll be a little bit more kind of varied. Okay. And you can have a cloud kind of more illuminated. You know, in certain areas, you don't have to have these all kind of equal, okay? This right here. I'll show you how fast these clouds can develop. Okay. So that's pretty fast. I don't know how long that took. I wasn't timing myself, but you know, was it like 30 seconds or something? I don't think it took more than a minute. Okay, see this one right here? You can just, I mean, you don't have to go all the way across either. You can just kind of build it up like this. See this one right here? It just kind of ends right there. You can do little bits and pieces if you want to. It's all just, you know, easy stuff. And this is no tricks or anything like that. You kind of have to, you know, I mean, if you haven't done this at all before, you know, you'll be, you know, you might take a little bit to, you know, to get used to it. But just, I don't know, to think about, it's like putting polish on something, you know, if someone kind of did shoe polishing, which no one ever does anymore, but it kind of feels like that, you know. You're just kind of spreading something around. You don't want a big lump of, you know, polish in one area. All right, so kind of developing like this. Now here's what I like to do while I'm doing this. I'm just going to kind of illuminate my moon a little bit more with a little bit more of a glowing orb. Like this. I'm going to just lightly tapping it around there like so. Okay, makes it a bit more of a glowing moon. Alright, but here's those clouds right there. Now here's what you do too. After you do all this with the masking, I mean this is a soft template right here, okay? But even with that, I find it a little bit too harsh, okay? That's one of the things I like the look of plastic templates, but it doesn't look natural to me. It looks more stylized. And again, I have no problem with stylized. I love stylized, right? But they look exactly the same sometimes to me because the plastic template never changes. But see this right here? You add a little bit more of this white now, kind of freehand, and you go kind of above the edge right there. So it softens and illuminates the edge like this. And it gives a little bit more character to your clouds, don't you think? Now I'm doing this kind of close to my moon because the clouds closer to the moon would be reflecting more of that light. And see this bottom lit cloud right here? I will bottom light this cloud closest to my moon, and I'm going into black there, and I'm kind of getting a little bit splotchy, so I'm kind of rubbing it a little bit to kind of even it out. If it gets really too splotchy, then you just come back in with your black ink and just go right back in there. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I did too much there, I ruined it or something like that. Just come back in there and, you know, come back in with black. See, I'm kind of rubbing it like this a little bit to get it in there. You can even like finger paint probably in here. Be kind of interesting. Alright, now one of the things too, when you're doing something like this, white pigment ink kind of dries a little bit darker, so if it looks too white, let it dry a little bit, let it set up and see what it looks like to you. Maybe it's the perfect application for when it's dry, you know, in terms of the amount of light that's in there. So even that glowing area around my moon has kind of not disappeared, but a lot of it is much darker. So I'm putting another layer of it on here. I don't see that as a negative. I see it as kind of like a, you know, kind of fine-tuning thing. If things aren't quite as extreme as what they look like when they're wet, when they're dry, you know, it gives you a chance to kind of, you know, really customize it and manipulate it. Okay, so that is kind of some applications. Now I'm going to, you know, I came in here with the streaks of black from the outside in. I'm going to come in here with some additional white, kind of in here, and kind of flesh out these clouds a little bit more, okay? I mean, they're very light, but it's just, you know, putting some of that texture and lighting in the piece. And let's put some lighting behind our mill here, or not mill, I was thinking about the old mill, covered bridge, okay? So it's like light, see how kind of, I mean, this is really building up slowly. Spread it around. I'm just touching this too. I'm not like squeezing it out, okay? That's how I'm not getting, I'm kind of avoiding as much as possible kind of blotches. Okay, so we have that in there. Okay, let's get a little bit more up here maybe. Maybe not too much more, but just a little bit. It's kind of illuminating the entire piece a little bit. All right, now I'm really enjoying this pigment ink here. This is really easy to work with too. Let's do something here. Let's take a couple pieces of scratch paper. And I tell you what, this is one of the easier things to do too. You see this rooftop in here for the covered bridge? Let's just mask this off like this. Oh, you can see my mask from my previous moon like that, you know. I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to mask off my rooftop, okay, bottom edge, top edge like this, okay, and we have this lighting coming from above with the moon, okay. Now I'm not going to try to be perfect with this or anything, it's not necessary. I'm just going to ink this up and I'm going to very lightly dab some of this color on. I'm not going to try to get to the exact edge back there, okay. You know, if I want that, I'll, you know, hit it with, you know, kind of a more precise tool. But And try to get it uneven, okay? Don't try to get it like a full saturation. Have a little bit more of it on one area of the moon. I mean, roof than the other area, okay? So see that right there? So now our rooftop is being illuminated by the moon. Isn't that kind of a soft, kind of supple lighting? Now, I went over it a little bit right here, but I'll kind of fine-tune it later. But see that right there with my rooftop? Now, you don't really get the sides of it, you know, because that'll be kind of darker. Look at that. Isn't that real atmospheric? Okay, let's put a little bit of atmosphere down our road, too. You know how I kind of made the sides of my road a little bit darker? Now, on our road, let's try to make the road a little bit lighter, okay? This creates a visual lead-in, having kind of something, you know, lighter leading into the scene, okay? See that right there? There's just barely any ink in there, so it really makes it, you know, very, very, you know, kind of non-precarious process doing that. Okay, so there's your kind of visual lead-in going into that space. And everything looks like it's real glowing. Okay, I want some kind of this illumination in my grassy area too. It's not saying that the grass is white, it's saying that it's light in some areas, okay? I'm getting a little blobby here. Let's move that around a little bit. Okay, kind of hit some areas in here. I mean, there's definitely some areas in here. Oops, see, that's really white right there. I mean, there's definitely some areas in here where kind of hitting it with kind of more exact detail types of tools will be better. But let's just kind of, just in general, establish some things with this first. Some areas of light. I'm starting to lose kind of my, you know, definition of some of my trees, you know, by going over it with the white like that. But it kind of sets a good foundation for some other things to come here too. All right, so that is that. Let's take our colored pencil here. Okay, it's just a white colored pencil. And what I'm going to do is come into some of my tree areas and illuminate them. This is an extremely hard colored pencil. Let's just go with my chalk pencil right here. Very, very lightly, okay? Adding some highlights up here. And we'll just kind of spread them around, kind of blend it. You can blend with your finger if you want to, the chalk pencil. If you have a good Prisma or anything like that, it'll work much better than this thing. I need to find, I have a whole bunch of real colored pencils. They're not, you know, super high quality or anything like that, but they're much softer. But see, what I'm doing is I'm kind of scumbling some lighting on my trees, okay? There's some billowy forms on my trees, okay? There's areas that are lighter than others, and what I'm doing is I'm lighting those, okay? You can light the top of your rooftop right here. Okay. Now, I don't do this over everything. You can do it over quite a bit, though, if you want to, but hold everything out at arm's distance to get a good feel for what this looks like as you're applying it. Sometimes when we're doing these detailed types of things, we're concentrated in a very small area, a small detailed area. What you want to do is you want to kind of, just kind of blending this in a little bit with my finger. You want to get a good idea of the overall effect that you are doing on your scene. So be sure and, you know, kind of hold out an arm's distance to see what things are looking like. Right? Now, if you start adding in the little details like this looks really weird because it's the only thing kind of illuminated in that area. So we're doing this overall to give everything kind of a good consistency. use some of this waxy colored pencil too here. Okay. I'm going to illuminate some of my water down here and some of the rocks. Okay, I just need to press a little bit harder with this one. They're really soft colored pencils and they're really hard ones. This one's a super hard one. What I'm finding is that this pencil doesn't work really good over the top of the pigment ink. It works fantastic over just the bare paper, but there's all these little rocks in here. I'm just kind of bringing out those rocks in here with some additional tone. Okay. See this right here with this pencil too. You can kind of let's see. You can illuminate an area in here if you want to, or just wherever you can get a little bit more texture too, that colored pencil texture if you want. Alright, and here's this chalk pencil. Watch this one. Let's see. This thing seems to work on just about anything. But if we want to kind of add some additional highlights on some of these clouds, a little bit too much, you can just kind of move it around a little bit. See this a little bit more illumination on the clouds right around my moon. There's that silver line cloud. It's not silver, it's white, but get the idea. Okay, alright. Something like that. Look at that area. See that little white right in there? Isn't that kind of, it's that reflected light. It creates this visual dialogue, I always say, between your light source and your reflected light. Look at that. Alright, maybe a little bit more kind of highlights down here in a couple of different areas. Maybe I'll go with the slats on the rooftop here, kind of going in that direction. Gives it a little more texture down here too, or illumination. Okay. Alright. You have a little bit more texture down there. See that? But at arm's distance, it looks like this. Alright. I'm deciding if I want some more black in here. I think that is fine, like as is. Alright, so let's see. Let's take some black here. And let's go with the leaves stamp and create some foreground. Everything's looking really soft in here. And just alone, I think, it looks okay, but it makes for a better visual statement to have something real sharp to contrast against that softness in there. Okay, because we want some sharper elements in here. Otherwise, I don't know, it tends to... we need some definition. It tends to look too, I don't know, one way if you don't have kind of these sharper elements. So what I mean by that is, see these trees and leaves like that against that softer element. They just complement each other a lot more, and it extends the textural range of a piece, okay, by having these sharper elements. You had the sharper elements to begin with, but then we softened them up somewhat, so here we are going in again and bringing it back into it. And this also creates depth, like this. See this right here? Depth and framing to the piece. So we have it all on this one side. I'll hit it again from over here, just to kind of contain the composition. So this is kind of representative of, kind of us standing underneath a tree looking into the scene. Right? I'll go pretty high here. I don't like to have it completely uniform from one side to the next, so maybe I'll kind of come like this. I'll stamp a couple branches up here, have a little bit of space here. They're all kind of connected right here. But, you're stamping it over your imagery up here, and that gives the things a little bit more depth. I think I'll leave that little stream down here as is. I won't go over it, so I'll just leave it as is. Maybe put a few leaves right up here, maybe. These leaves could be bushes or, kind of a tree limb or whatnot, or you have juvenile trees that are lower to the ground or whatnot, the same variety. See like that right there? Crisp against soft. And it also creates depth. Okay, since I have it here in this set too, maybe I'll come in with the hanging leaves too. It's just more of kind of a droopy, kind of, vertical. Do something like that. Set against that cloud in the background. And again, here's the fold right in here. I think I'm going to do something here from a textural standpoint. I haven't done it for a while, and I miss my splatter. I think I'm going to just give this a light textural kind of illumination with some Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White, one of my favorite supplies to have. It's like I added a lot of water to this one the last time. It's usually drier. I haven't done this for, I don't know, at least a few weeks, it seems like. Okay, so you just get it kind of like, I don't know, maybe thin to thick syrup, something like that. In terms of your consistency, I just use a old toothbrush, okay? Kind of a stiff one, medium firm. Soft ones might be a little bit too soft. You can try it. The consistency you get is depending on how thin you make this paint, though, in addition to the bristles on your brush. I didn't pick this toothbrush, It was just one that was probably a free one from a dentist or something like that. Okay, but also the distance from which you spray things with, will determine, your spray pattern. Practice on something, I don't know, have a separate piece of dark paper that you're not using just to spread it. It's hard to tell sometimes when you're doing this type of splattering like this, is it going to go over there? Sometimes I go like this and it's going over here. And how much, I don't know. Okay, let's see here. There's like 3 drops right there. See, I don't try to do this fast. I just try, and I'm just kind of releasing one bristle at a time, okay? See, I'm kind of doing it from, I don't know, this is like 6 or 8 inches away, I would say. See, it's like a little dot, 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 okay? Not zip, I mean, if you're doing some sort of flurry, then I guess you can go fast if you want to. For a kind of a real gestural type of application. I'm usually not going for that, though, in my pieces. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I want these sprays to be kind of going at an angle, like it's like super windy or something like that, but just in general, usually not.
Anyways, I hope you can see that on the video. I didn't. Some of these are really small, so I didn't do it too extreme. Let's take a look and see what this is. See that? It's kind of crisp amongst soft. All right. So it's another crisp element. It's like first snow or something like that. I don't know what it represents. From a visual standpoint, I think it just looks interesting. Okay, let me change my exposure on this. All right, change the exposure on this. It's getting kind of developed like that, but it's that visual lead-in, just kind of making that white like that. A little bit of lighting over here. You got source of light, reflected light. Light really reflects off water and ice really strongly, but off of, terrain, dark leaves or something like that, grass, it's less reflective than water, so you don't have the tones quite so light down here. I mean, you could. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but it just kind of makes for kind of a good lighting statement, having lighter reflected elements closer to your light source than farther away. And it's also representative of kind of the surface that's being reflected. So, I mean, if I had some areas down here that were like a patch of snow, maybe that would be very light. But in this one, it's not really the case, because we have these deciduous trees in here that are still full of leaves. So maybe it's an early snow or something, I don't know. But, okay, this is what it looks like, with the lighting really reflecting on hard, and yeah, it's like the change of day, or nighttime, different time of day. But it's fun working around with the materials like this. I was going to do a foil piece, which I'll do maybe next or something, but I just wanted to do a full piece using the large covered bridge right there. And what I was talking about is kind of sequential aesthetics and visuals. See, I want that to read as just one piece right there. And I think it reads as a pretty good scene just as is. And then you have this piece right here. And I think that reads as a scene in itself. But then, so that's two scenes, you get this for the kind of that grand spread of a double page spread. And I think, added up, it reads more as just two pieces double. Okay, I think it's like, I don't know, a little bit more from kind of a grand space of it than just two scenes put together, like I said. Okay, so anyways, on the inside here, it'd be kind of interesting to do some sort of, I don't know, card, moonlight or whatever moonlight is, sculpture. I don't know. There's some different quotes, or you can write whatever. Hope you can sleep. Hope you're sleeping well, or something like that. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.